how a helicopter lands, on
Yeah.
so like having the back of the graver touch down and then the tip.
Good morning. I'm Molly, and I'd like to welcome you to The Angle, a GRS series highlighting our instructors shaping the 2026 class season. Let's go.
I'm Johnny, aka Johnny Oro, and I'm teaching Introduction to Diamond Setting, and I'm also teaching Introduction to Pavé this year. So I'm on my gosh, is it the fourth year of teaching for GRS?
I think so.
Okay. So then, yeah, I'm not new to teaching. I've been doing that for quite a while. It's going to be a fun time. We're going to learn a bunch of stuff and I'm going to show you what works for me. And if you find a different way, keep what you like from me and then, adapt it to make it your own and make the tools and techniques that I'm giving you your own.
Since you teach privates in your own studio, what do you have requested the most when they come to you as private students?
Engraving and also a combination of engraving and diamond setting. So when someone wants to do like a decorative setting, like making bands like French set or castle sets requires graver control that requires just tool knowledge. And so with a fast, week, we can go through quite a bit of that sort of stuff. And typically people have come to me also for the applications that I do jewelry engraving and making patterns and also letters. And so I've gotten kind of it streamlined at the point where I'm feeling confident I can successfully teach script and Roman lettering.
Would you say that's what you're most known for is the inside ring engraving or the
Probably. I'm one of the few that posts
do
regularly
it?
about it. I'm sure there's plenty of other people doing inside ring engraving, but it's a fun sort of it's a tricky process and I enjoy it, and it also it sells well because you show it to a customer and their face just lights up when they see the inside of their ring with a special date or a term of endearment from their significant other.
Do you feel like most of that is still done with, the little machine? You know what I'm talking about? What is that
Oh,
called?
I get what you're saying. A lot of it's still done like that, but even
Yeah.
more now with lasers, and that burns it onto the
Oh,
metal.
yeah.
Whereas with a hand engraving, what we get is very sparkly letters. They twinkle from like a
Mhm,
distance, and so that looks much more special than a burned on sort of image.
mhm. What would you say, the hardest part of that skill is?
Uh, Well, definitely having a good idea of being able to draw it by hand. And there are things that you can do to simplify that. And I think just not getting frustrated and just taking the time to actually, you can't transfer it with acetone or any other way. You have to draw it onto the item. So I think getting through people to even try that is difficult. But once they try it, and you kind of break it down to some easy step by step, you get good results. So
How were you approached about teaching at GRS?
right before COVID, they reached out to me. Josh Hamlin reached out to me and was talking about having me come down and see a class with Sam Alfano, and I'd not met Sam before, so I was just like, "Wow, this is like super
Sweet.
amazing." I'm
Yeah.
excited, and then COVID hit, and like, everything got canceled. Then we got through that, and I went down and I saw Todd Daniels' class with Sam Alfano at the same time, and so I got to meet two extremely, accomplished jewelers and artists, and it was just really inspiring because I had so many questions, and we're used to working by ourselves. So when we get around other people like us, we have a lot of questions. So yeah, it was a great experience. I'll never forget, coming in because I had looked up to Sam. You just start Googling and anything about engraving, and Sam's work is likely to pop up. And also his online presence really allowed it to be much more accessible for people that had never even heard about it. And so I was living in, Italy when I started to Google, like things about hand engraving. That was right after got done with my base goldsmith course, and I was exposed to engraving a little bit, and I wanted to learn more, and that's when I found the engraving forum, and so got to finally meet my hero from the online world.
Did you
And,
know Todd at all?
I did know Todd, of course. I knew Todd. I didn't know, I'd never met him before, and
Hmm.
I'd not seen so much of his work, but I knew he was a GRS instructor, and I know he was an accomplished engraver. And so, obviously, meeting Todd was amazing because he has so many different skill sets as a jeweler that, very few people you get to meet have.
Who are some jewelers or engravers that you look at their work that you may not have met that you look up to?
There's so many. I mean, there's a lot of incredible engravers, not just in the United States, but in the world. I've made friends from afar with people in Europe, with people in Iran, with people in Russia, all over the world.
Yeah.
And I think it's beautiful that we can unite uh, and feel that mutual respect for the love for the art, and that's what kind of unites us all. And I think that's a really special person. Well, I mean, I have a lot that come to mind. I don't want to single out any particular one, but I can just say, you know, we are part of a legacy of a story that
Yeah.
lasted 500 plus years. So I think it's cool to think that we carry that art form into the future.
Talking about internationally, you just came back from Vicenza not that long ago, correct?
Yeah. We
How
we
was
were in
that?
Vicenza. It was great. It was, 1 week at the VicenzaOro show. If you've not been there, it's like the bigger than JCK version of Europe. It's huge. It's in like, basically like a mall complex that they build, and it's 3 times a year. It's hosted in Vicenza, but the time of the year that we go, 1 time a year, they will do the technology fair, and so you have all of the goldsmith tools and equipment, and you have demonstrators like me showing people how to use GRS equipment. Because a lot of jewelers in Italy, they have gravers, they have just like
The
the
traditional
normal
style.
hand push gravers, but they don't ever get exposed to the pneumatic stuff. So when you show them that, it's interesting because it's seemed kind of unapproachable before, but I think they see that obviously the investment in technology is going to speed up your work and also make it more precise. So,
Do you feel like you meet resistance as far as like that's not real engraving?
no, that has been a long time that I haven't heard anyone say that. It's a very easy thing to shut down. You can just say, lay this on the table and hit the pedal and see what
Yeah.
happens. Nothing
Hmm.
happens. This is what makes it hand engraving. So my hand guiding the tool is what makes it. If Leonardo da Vinci or Michelangelo were alive today, of course they'd use an air chisel on, a marble. So
Yeah.
it's like saying the same thing.
Is there any other skill or something that you still want to learn and haven't ventured into yet?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Never
I
ending.
of course, whenever my good friend Castro Smith, who does incredible engraving, he will also enamel on top of the engraving. And
Beautiful.
in Italy, the enamel work in Northeast Italy is very much prevalent. You see a lot of copper vases and copper vessels that are enameled and covered in glass. And so when I was there on my first day at goldsmith training, we did enamel work, but I always looked at it as like, how is this applicable to like my kind of family jewelry store in the United States? Now I could see much more interest in like coloring and engraving by having a surface level enamel work.
Yeah.
The enamel work, it takes a lot of time, and you have to have the right equipment and all that stuff. So it's one of those things that I've meant to go back and learn from my professor, and maybe I'll go do that in the next year.
What are your favorite colors of enamel work that you I
I
love the
mean,
blue.
I love the blues and the ocean colors and, all the, cool colors of green. Yeah, love all
Hmm.
that stuff. Like, the Paraíba color of the ocean, teal, all that. Yeah.
Yeah, so pretty. When you started teaching at GRS, what was unexpected when you came to the training center?
I I just didn't expect the camaraderie that was already present there, and that was really nice to see because it is like joining a family, and I feel extremely, humbled to be around people that are so, you know high up in the industry that, they're my colleagues. That's pretty cool, and we've become so close with many of them, and it's just a big family, so that's nice.
Mm. What do you think students come to the training center and find
Think
right?
similarly, like, they are now a part of that extended family, and when, you are at a class, you're networking with people that, maybe you've not done this in 10 years or something,
Yeah.
and, it suddenly opens your mind, and I like to describe it as putting air in my tires because it's just you're around other people, and it just makes you, like, very e excited on the next horizon of, goals.
Yeah, I think that's part of the reason why I'm so excited to get back to is it's just,
Yeah, it's
there's
infectious.
always a new background coming into the training center that you're picking up ideas from or just
Yeah, absolutely. And it's inspiring to also learn so much from the students as well. A lot of
Yeah.
these students are coming in, 30 some years of being at the bench. And that's extremely humbling. It harkens back to what I was told from a young age, as a young goldsmith student was pick something that you really enjoy doing and specialize in it, and you will be sought out for that specialty. And that was said multiple times by Italian instructors, by Alexander, who I went to learn from in Belgium in 2015. They said the same thing: specialize in one thing, like know how to do a lot of things. In the army, we referred to that as kind of like an inch deep and a mile wide, like very well diverse, like knowledge of how things are done, but like maybe you're not super specialized in one particular area. So having the ability to like say, I do this all the time, you literally don't have to worry about is this job going to turn out well? It's a matter of time.
Hmm.
Every time works, then it works.
Today's episode is sponsored by the Pavé Support Hotline. For when you've set 47 stones perfectly, but 48 chooses violence. If your beads are collapsing, your spacing is artistically interpretive, or you're telling yourself, no one will notice. We do. We notice. Our trained specialists are standing by with magnification, steady hands, and just a hint of accountability. The Pavé Support Hotline. Tight beads, tight standards.
what was the most challenging thing for you to learn?
At the present time, it's knotting pearls. I've not done well with that. So if anyone can help me with that, I'd be very, very
Another
pleased.
plug.
Yeah,
Oh,
another plug. But the thing is, unless you're doing it all the time, it's hard to get good at that particular skill.
Hmm.
I do know how to sew. I do know how to knit, so that really helps build finger dexterity. But like knotting a pearl, I've not found like a really good method to get a consistent result.
what's your favorite piece that you've ever created?
Well, I could go grab
Do you have it?
inside part here. Can you see it is a Greek Athena ring, and it was
Cool.
22 karat, and it
Hmm.
was a wax seal ring. And so it took a great deal of time to kind of understand how to make a wax seal ring. But funny enough, you use a ton of hand push round gravers and you just kind of dig. It's been interesting to get those jobs every now and then. I would love to do more of
Yeah.
them, but it's just one of those things where it's like if you're not getting the commission to do those things, you don't do them that much. So yeah, that ring is one of the few pieces that like if they wanted to sell it back to me, I'd be like, sure.
Do you have any of your earlier pieces
I
still?
do. So I have I just posted it the other day, the Ponte Vecchio ring, and it was one of my first few gold pieces that I made that was uniquely mine. I wasn't working on other people's jewelry. So when I made that ring, it just sat on my bench for a good year, and no one bought it. And then I ended up having it in the store, and then it slowly just was like charming for people, but no one wanted to buy it. It's just like sat there. And it got to a point where I was like, you know what? I'm not going to sell it because this is one of the first pieces I made. So I just
So I
decided
kept it.
it's display only. And if someone wants me to make another one, I'll make another one, but it's not going to be the original one. Yeah.
Do you have any big ideas in your heads of projects that you want to do and haven't been able to get to yet?
I'm really good at starting projects and then not finishing them. So there's a ton of copper plate engraving things that I want to address and do and on my own time. But I feel like that'll be a good retirement career. It's hard because like I want to go further into printmaking. I need extended amount of time to make jewelry, and really I'm so busy. It could take me a long time to get to any of that, but it's a good problem to have. I definitely can see I'm exceeding the expectations of what I thought I was going to be capable of um, 10 years ago. So yeah.
That's very cool.
Yeah, it's great. It's good to be busy, and it's a good
Hmm.
problem to have. So yeah, I'm at the point now where I need to find the right apprentice.
Uh, who was I talking to about that? About how apprenticeships really weren't a thing and aren't a thing. But at the same
Yeah,
time, I feel like I've heard so many people say, like, I need to get someone in under me. And I feel like it's kind of making a comeback. Do you agree with that?
I would agree with that. It's hard for people to pause their life, and I feel like you have to kind of like pause your life and focus on that one thing for 3, 6, 12 months, whatever it would be. And it's going to be hard to learn all those things. It's kind of like any other trade job that you're learning while you're doing the job. So it's in the army, on the job training. That's what it comes down to is there's a lot of things to know. It's not rocket science. It is a goofy industry because there's so many things that you have to deal with the public. You have to have a lot of tool knowledge. You have to know how to work with fire and microscopes and all these things. And so I think an appealing job it's an appealing career for people that are tinkers and like to,
Yeah.
have that miniaturist kind of mentality. But it's also it just takes time to learn.
For someone coming into the world of engraving and stone setting and jewelry, what's a piece of advice or expectations that you think they should know?
I think a big expectation should be just allow the time and like don't push the limits of like progressing too fast. I think enjoy the process of learning when you are exposed to these different things. Try to expose yourself to a lot of different parts of the trade. And if you get a chance to pick up a graver or something like that and scratch some lines in the metal of a copper plate or of a brass plate or whatever, if it is really exciting to you, then you could also look into taking an engraving class like at GRS or something. And that's a great way to expose yourself and not have that initial learning curve of learning by
Yeah.
hand push. It's an intimidating one because it's just you have to get over that like training wheels part of like you're gonna have to rip the training wheels off at the at some point of the hand push engraving. But the GRS equipment helps you get those excellent cuts like within the first day, and then it's just a matter of controlling the depth and the thickness of the line.
We've had a few reviews over the years where people thought that they were going to come in doing hand push. And I don't think that people realize, like, yes, it's a cost effective way to get into it, but it's hard.
The Western bright cut engravers like Diane Scalezi, she said that when she first had someone showing her that jewel movement of hand push engraving and rolling the flat graver, she said it was the first time that it actually made sense to her of how to complete those cuts. And I'm like, well,
Mhm.
that's a really important thing for people to understand. And perhaps you can understand it a little better by doing like Western bright cuts, just these big broad lines with a huge flat, very sharp graver. But if you don't have the equipment, it's hard to practice doing that like on a wooden block. You're not going to get very
Yeah.
good results. You're probably going to cut your hand. So yeah, it's one of those things where it's definitely benefits you having the experience of hand push engraving first because you're going to learn delicate lines and everything, but the learning curve is much higher for hand push engraving. So having the ability to just literally, I refer to it like as gas and brake, like
Mhm.
just the graver that's half the battle right there of hand push engraving that you can cut the learning curve off of.
How would you describe your teaching style, Johnny?
I did 21 years in the Army Reserve, and so I've taught uh, at like, sometimes very tedious or technical sort of skills that are required of soldiers to do. Uh, I think that like making it like, for lack of better words, like teaching on like a fourth grade level of just simplifying tasks and making a process, then it makes it a lot more easy for me to get,
Bite-sized
a good
pieces.
result. The thing is there is no right way to teach, right? So everyone has different styles, and I think I've gotten very good feedback from my teaching style. I always want to have everyone, be respected and have a great, experience. So when you're in my class, we're gonna be a very tight knit group, and we're gonna try to help each other out. If we know the right answer, if we don't, well, that's where I come in.
I've also asked the other instructors about student reviews. Do you have any that have stuck with you?
Yeah, of course. I've gotten some great feedback of like, certain things that I say. Again, this is the army coming on me, but I say, like how a helicopter lands, on
Yeah. Yep.
and I
On the
said
polishing wheel.
so like having the back of the graver touch down and then the tip on the polishing wheel. So those sorts of things like allow me to carry that on and have it be a part of my teaching language. And just obviously the thank yous that I get from students, it's really impactful because I remember what it was like to want to have that next big achievement like right on the horizon. I could see it's there and just have to put the time in and to help people catapult themselves like a few years into the future just in 1 week really is impactful. And I've gotten some very sincere thank yous, and obviously makes me feel really good.
What is a specific skill that you don't think people should rush through?
If you're trying to start your own business and you're not sure about like investing money in this and how how much money to pump into your business at maybe at one time, and I think doing it at an organic sort of speed, not pushing like growing your business maybe too fast by owing a bunch of people money, I would watch out for that. And then other things like as far as skills go, I mean, obviously stone setting. You can say there's a lot of very fun skills to learn in stone setting. It does take time, and sometimes people get in over their heads or they just kind of rush something, and that's where mistakes start to happen. It's not a matter of difficulty once you have these skills. It literally just takes time.
Which do you think is the most important to master first?
You can't really do much if you don't have a good design. So if it's engraving, I think you should pick up a pencil too, and you need to also put some time into designing what you're gonna make. Because if you just jump into cutting, you're probably not gonna have as good a result as if you came up with a plan. So yeah, and a lot of that goes into stone setting as well. Sometimes you start stone setting something, and you're like, oh, I'll just start, making this into something now that this is looking good, and it's like that's fine. You can do that, but it probably would have turned out even better if you would have, had that design on paper first.
Who are some stone setters that do really good layout and design that you would suggest to look at?
Todd Daniels does great stone setting layouts, and so does Jason Fava. Jason Fava, another incredible diamond setter and jeweler. Same thing with Ben, who is trained with Alexander like me. The amount of stone setters that are out there that are very talented is increasing a lot every year.
Mm.
And so it's cool to have a lot of people that have a different approach to it. They still do it in their own unique way, and it's beautiful.
As a business owner and instructor, and then obviously having your own personal life, how do you balance your time with experimenting with new, fresh ideas and your workload?
You have to make time for that because it's very important. And I, one time a year, make time to go to the Minneapolis Institute of Arts and to go to their print room and to enjoy the art of engraving and find inspiration in that, because I have found just a treasure trove of incredible, inspiring pieces of art by going and visiting some of these old prints. And it's all for free. In many major cities, they have a print room that you can make a reservation at, and you can go see the prints for nothing. And it's like an adult field trip. So it's just a very important thing to remember to give yourself a little bit of a artistic treat, because you might not feel I'm not an artist, I'm more of a crafts person. It's like, but
Hmm.
there's plenty of things that you know that you can apply in different ways. And hand engraving is quite giving in itself as an art form because you can look at a painting like done by John Singer Sargent and you can hypothesize how he might have made that painting, but you don't know. And if
Yeah.
you go up to a Durer engraving that is 500 years old, you can see where they entered the cut and where they exited the cut. And so it's pretty amazing to have that kind of an art form that you can literally break it down to line by line. And that's what you see in engraving is you're able to do that.
What do you draw inspiration from for your work?
I look at a ton of jewelry, and it's not just things that are things that I actually would wanna wear. It's looking at a lot of jewelry, around in the industry, so I enjoy looking at other engravers. As an engraver, I am a big fan of engraving, so I'm looking at a ton of different, friends of mine and other engravers that I have not met, so it's one of those things that I look at a lot of inspiration. I also will pick up books and start getting books on, drawing flowers and plant life and organic things. Some of the best books for inspiration are written by John Bergling, who was an artist in the late 1800s. I love his lettering work and all of his mixtures of the human and organic, plants and stuff like that in his
Hmm.
work. So yeah, there's a lot of inspiration to draw from, and it's something that if you don't have a very stimulating environment, start building your library up. Start having books on hand that you can look at and find inspiration.
I just packed all my books away and I was
Yeah,
like, "Oh, I really want this book right now."
it's sad when you don't have access to just a ton of books, and it's a great way to start the day. And if you're not able to just read 30 minutes in the morning, and it's a great way to start your morning.
What are you looking forward to the most this training season?
It should be very interesting to see the amount of work that we can get done in a 1 week basic stone setting course. I'm very much excited for that. And it's going to be something that I've not done before. And I'm excited to see
Hmm.
where we go with it. And then also, I'm going back to teach one of my favorite classes, Intro to Pavé. And it's really a lot of fun to see taking that student from not being able to set a 1 millimeter, CZ, and then at the end of the week, they're setting like a point 0.8.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Thank you for spending time with us this morning. We hope you stay tuned for the newest episode of The Angle with our next instructor.